Okay guys, now let's look at making these MIDI groove templates, these little MIDI patterns where the note positions are based on the position of the hits or the loud peaks in our audio file. In this case we're going to be making a MIDI groove template, a drum MIDI pattern from an audio drum loop. Now the tutorial I previously was showing you was how to create a groove template directly from the audio loop, and we did that by using Flex to detect the peaks of the drums in the audio region. Okay, but now that we're going to make a MIDI groove template, the actual MIDI pattern type of groove template, we can't use this Flex detection system for that. So turn it off if it's on. To make the MIDI groove template we have to use a different detection system from Flex, okay, and to get that we go to Factory, Audio to MIDI groove template, and open this dialog box, and this is a different detection system from Flex. Flex was brought in on Logic 9 and it's very robust and reliable, but Flex is really about detecting peaks in the audio energy, right? Whereas the Audio to MIDI groove template dialog box and detection system, it can do more than detect just the loud beginning of peaks, but it is a lot more complicated to use than Flex. But anyway, we have to use this dialog box to create our MIDI groove template from our audio loop. So you open this up, and the first thing you do is you go through the presets and you're looking for good detection lines in the audio row. Okay, now the audio row is the row showing the vertical lines, the peaks that Logic has detected from the peaks in the audio waveform based on the parameters that are implemented when you change the preset. So you go through and you're looking for the display of the vertical lines in this audio detection row. So you go along and you find a preset that gets you a good starting point. Okay, now don't think that the title of these presets is that relevant to the type of material you're processing or detecting. Just because it's drums doesn't mean you can only try the drum presets. Try all the presets, go through them until you get a good starting preset. Now a good starting preset will be one that gives you a vertical line for every drum hit in your drum loop. Whether or not it's that accurate, there must be one vertical line for each hit, and as long as it's within a reasonable distance of the hit, that's what you're looking for. And there may be extra lines such as the one here, but there can be more extra lines. But initially when you're going through the presets, you're just looking to find a vertical line for each drum hit, and if there's extras, so be it. So most tutorials out there will then say to you, okay, once you've got a preset which gives you good starting points, you then start adjusting the parameters to try to get the detection points better. Now look, as I just lower this granulation, you can see this little peak here, this little detection peak here for this snare moving. Okay, so you're encouraged to do that, to fiddle with these parameters, to try to get lines like that to come across even nearer in the correct position, and also to try and get rid of as many extra detection points as possible. I don't teach it that way. I've got an extra step at the end. So the way I teach it is that you don't need to get the position of these lines very accurate. As long as there is a vertical line for each peak, that's enough. But in the classical tutorials you're told that you need to get these peaks spot on and you should fiddle. Now just to show you, granulation is about how much of the audio energy the detection system detects. As you lower it, the detection system detects more and more of the energy of the hits, and at the very bottom it detects not only the initial rising peak but all the granules of the energy of the waveform peak as it decays, you see. So that's what granulation is. It's kind of how finely Logic analyzes the audio energy. whether or not it just looks for only the loudest peak beginnings or more extra material. Okay, so you'll be encouraged to kind of fiddle with that and watch your lines move around like they are now, look. Okay, what else have we got besides the granulation? We've got the velocity threshold, quite easy to understand. The more you raise it, you're raising the velocity threshold, just like on a compressor or a noise gate. And so the higher you push this, the more the quieter peaks are ignored, because they start falling below the threshold, so they're no longer detected, you see. So that's what threshold does. But usually for drum loops, you've got loud peaks in between gaps which are pretty quiet, so your velocity threshold should be right down. And then your attack range and smooth releaser, the best way to kind of sum them up is they're to do with the distance logic looks across between bits of loud energy, I suppose. That's one way of describing it. So if you fiddle with those, again, you'll see lines move, new lines appearing and stuff like that. Same with the attack range. New lines will appear, lines may move. Okay, and the idea is you fiddle around with these things until you've got the lines as near as damn it that you can get to these peaks, and then you knock out any extras, and you do that by just clicking on the little tiny white lines in the audio row, and then their accompanying line directly below in the results row disappears and they become dotted. So we got rid of that extra one, and we get rid of this extra one here. You have to be incredibly careful when you click on these lines to get rid of them. It's nowhere near as robust as Flex. If I miss just that much like that, it deselects the entire display, and I have to click on the loop again to reactivate the display. So you've got to be incredibly accurate with the mouse when you click on these lines in the audio row. But you get it right and they become dotted, and the result row accompanying peak disappears. Now the vertical lines in the results row are the positions from which our MIDI notes will be taken when we create our groove template, our MIDI groove template. So that's what you do. Get a preset. So find a preset which gives you one vertical line for each hit, even if it's not that accurate. Fiddle a little bit with the parameters to try and bring these more into the right position. Any extras that are then left, click on them in the audio row and they disappear from the results row. And we're now ready to create our MIDI groove template. Okay. Oh, by the way, there is also this base quantize that you can put into the central row here, but don't bother with that. And the time correction allows you to drag the results row backwards and forwards, but again, I rarely use that. You'll find you rarely use that. I've got to knock these out again, these extras, so they disappear from the results row. Okay, so we've got a little peak for each drum hit, roughly in the right position. As I said, the way I'm going to teach you, it doesn't matter if it's absolutely accurate. All you need is one vertical peak per drum, and if it's out by 3 or 4 millimeters or even 5 millimeters in either direction, don't worry about that. All you're looking for is one vertical peak for each drum that's close enough. And once you've done that, you click use. Don't bother with the try, it's a complete waste of time. Click use and your MIDI groove template will be created on the same track that's highlighted. So click use. Bosh, done. And you'll find the little MIDI groove template sitting behind the audio loop. There it is. Unmute it. Let's have a look at it. Oh, first push it up onto an instrument track, right? It's on an instrument track now with an audio drum instrument on it. Then bring the loop back underneath, like that. Okay, let's have a look what we got. That's the end of the first steps. We've created our initial MIDI groove template, and each of the positions of these notes represents a position of a hit in here, taken from the vertical lines in the results row of our audio to MIDI groove template analysis. All right. So that's step one, and it should sound, you know, the position of these notes should be quite accurate to the position of the drum hits. Okay, and notice also they've got different velocities. Logic not only detects the position, but the height of these lines represents the velocity, so the louder hits are louder in velocity in your resulting MIDI groove template, right? So the next thing we need to do is identify the drums in our MIDI pattern. So the first thing to do is have a look up and down the MIDI groove template, and any notes you find that have been put in to your resulting MIDI groove template, higher up or lower down, drag them up to the same pitch as the others. And remember, when we do any dragging up and down in pitch of these notes, they're going to retain their unique start positions because limit dragging is switched on. So get them all on the same row and then lower them to a percussive sound. That's all we're looking for, a percussive drum sound, such as that. You're looking for a sound with a fast attack and a fairly fast decay. And now we're going to start identifying which is which drum. So to do that, we make sure everything else is muted, and we're just going to listen now to our MIDI drums triggering this sound, this MIDI pattern, this MIDI groove template, while we listen to the actual real drum loop. Okay, and then we can identify which of these notes in our resulting MIDI groove template is which drum. So let's do that. That's a kick. Drag it down. Ba-dum-dum. Those are 3 kicks. Drag those to the same pitch. That's all our kicks. Drag them down to C1, which is normally your kick drum. Okay, next the snares. Snare. Snare. Drag those onto the same different pitch, and then grab any snares, highlight them, the whole lot, and drag them to a snare pitch, which is usually D1. Okay. That's the kicks and snares, but in the case of your pattern it might be kicks and claps or whatever other low-end drums, but we've identified the louder energy drums, the kicks, snares, claps, tom, low tom, other types of drum sounds. These will be your loudest energy drums, and then mute everything else. Okay, let's hear these with the loop. Lower the real loop. Okay, not bad. Now, depending how well you adjusted the parameters in your audio to MIDI groove template settings to get these vertical lines in the results row, when you're now listening to your kicks and snares against the actual drum loop, they should be quite accurate. But in the way I'm going to teach it, don't worry if some of them are out a little bit. It doesn't matter, because I'm going to show you an extra step at the end that other people aren't teaching. So these should sound pretty close, but if some of them are out a bit, don't worry. And it pretty well matches our loop. Yeah? So now we need to go to the second part, which is to get all our top end content in after we have figured out and moved to the correct note numbers all our loud energy drums, our bottom end content, our kicks, snares, claps, or combinations of claps and snares. The low, louder energy drums have been separated off, and now we are missing our hats. Okay, there's only 3, and they only appear in the gaps where there are not any of the louder energy drums. Okay, and the reason for that is when Logic does its detection to create the MIDI groove template, okay, it's just putting a vertical line at the peak of each hit. Now there's a snare here, but there's also a hi-hat, but the hi-hat is not as loud, so it's being masked by the snare, and Logic just detects the loudest drum, the snare. And then here there's a kick, but there's also a hi-hat there, but again the kick is way louder and it masks the hi-hat, so Logic only detects the energy of the loudest drum, which is the kick at this position. Now here there's no snare or kick, so we detect a hi-hat. Here there's no snare or kick, so we detect a hi-hat, and here at the end there's no snare or kick, so we detect the hi-hat slice, and therefore 1 closed hi-hat, 2 closed hi-hats and an open hi-hat are only detected in the gaps where there are no other louder drums to mask them. That's why we only have a hi-hat there and the open one at the end. So we now need to get our hi-hats into our MIDI groove template. Okay, because we've lost all the hi-hats which were on positions with the kick or snare. So delete all your hi-hats after separating off your low end loud drum energy notes, right? Okay, now what we're going to do is we get this audio loop and apply an EQ on the audio channel strip, put on the low shelf, and push up the frequency up to about 4.5, 5K, like that. And that will filter out all the bottom end loud drum energy from our loop. And when you do that, and listen to only the very top end energy, it will be less loud. So put up your fader, and you might have to put up the gain on the EQ as well. Let's hear that. You're looking for a healthy level in the meters here. Right, we can clearly hear there are hi-hats on eighths going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's even a little skip hi-hat in the middle, I think, going like that. 1, 2, 3, like that. Yeah, so we know we've got 8 hi-hats, right? So therefore, obviously, we're missing hi-hats from our MIDI groove template. So next thing we do is with the EQ on this track for the audio loop, we bounce it in place. So hold down Control, left click on the loop, bounce in place. Just leave all this as it is and click OK, and a new track is created underneath with our new audio loop. Now our new audio loop is a bounced in place copy of this loop being passed through the EQ. Right, so all the bottom end energy is missing from this new audio loop, and it's an audio loop of just the hi-hat energy. There you go, look. So now we make a new MIDI groove template from just the hi-hat analysis. Audio to MIDI groove template. And we're looking for, again, a peak on each hit of the hi-hat. But there is a little extra hit here which is not being detected. Listen. Yeah, it goes t t t t t t t t. So there's a missing line there. So I'm gonna have to fiddle around with the parameters and see if I can get that line to appear. I doubt I will be able to. I might have to put that. Oh, there it is. There. Little. It's incredibly low in volume. Now, by changing the one of the parameters, and I can't remember which one I dragged, but I think it was the attack range. We made a little tiny peak appear for this little extra grace hi-hat note there, but it also made 2 lines appear there, right? So I can now knock this one out by manually clicking on the line in the audio row. Ah, missed. Re-highlight the region. Got it. And it disappears from the results row. So now we've got a vertical line for each hi-hat hit. Don't worry if they're not that accurate. Just as long as you've got one vertical line in the results row for each hi-hat hit. And again, we click Use, and the new MIDI groove template of just the hi-hat analysis will appear on the selected track. Click Use, there it is, done. And it's behind the audio loop of just the hi-hat energy, right? There it is, so drag it up here, unmute it, and we have a new MIDI groove template of just the hi-hats, taken from this audio loop, bounced in place, which is just the sound of the hi-hats with all the bottom end stuff filtered out. Okay. So, oops, so let's have a look. There's our hi-hats, there's a little double hi-hat there. Let's drag it off that pitch and just shorten it. That's a little tiny skip hi-hat, but it's incredibly low in velocity. Okay, so there's our hats. Check up and down again to see that no hats have gone astray on a different pitch number. That's our open slice at the end there. And these are all hats, and they're all on C3 now, and we've got our kicks and snares from the previous analysis. This is the first MIDI groove template with the remaining hi-hats knocked out. And now we join the two together with the glue tool. And our resulting pattern, which is on this instrument track, has got now the kicks and snares down the bottom. We previously dragged onto their correct note numbers, and now we can do the same with the hats. Put them all on a closed hi-hat, and this is an open hi-hat at the end. Let's hear it. Let me mute the bottom end drums. Let's hear that hi-hat pattern being played by the MIDI, by the audio instrument, by this pattern. mute them. Thank you. Right, this is clearly wrong. This little hi-hat hit there. First of all, we can't hear it. Let's raise its velocity a bit. Yeah, it should be more in line with that kick, couldn't it? It's a bit late. So as I said, some notes won't be exactly perfect in their positioning, but don't worry about that yet. We've got this little hit here should be really more over here like that or something, shouldn't it? Like that. But as I said, if some of the notes aren't perfectly positioned, don't worry. Okay, now with our bottom end content included. Okay, so close but no cigar. Here we go. Okay, but that is it. That's how you do it. MIDI groove template created from an audio loop with all the high-end drums and low-end drums in. Now, as I said, if you took a lot of time when you did your analysis to create your MIDI groove templates, if you took a lot of time fiddling with these parameters to try and get these white lines, absolutely perfect, one for each hit in the results row, then your resulting MIDI groove template now should sound pretty accurate to the drums. I am saying don't bother to be too accurate when you're doing the analysis. As long as you've got a vertical line for each drum, that's good enough. So I'm going to show you a little extra tip to do at the end now to bring everything absolutely in line with the position of these drum hits, even if you want to make it sample accurate. So let me show you my last little tip. I don't see anyone else teaching this, but it works like this. There's a drum loop of the main audio energy, and there's the drum loop of just the hi-hats energy. Okay, so let's drag off a copy of this loop, and I'm going to colour it, I don't know, this pink, salmony pink colour there. Then I'm going to drag off a copy of my hats only audio loop, and I'm going to colour that a pink colour. Okay, now I'm going to retitle the main audio loop, which is all of the drum sounds and not the hats only filtered out. I'm going to retitle that one hip hop main, and then the hats only loop, where we filtered out all the audio energy from the low end and bounced it in place. I'm going to rename that hip hop hats. Okay, now quite simple. This is what we do. The timing of our notes here is pretty accurate, but not 100% accurate. It could be more accurate. Certainly this note here is out. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to make a groove template now, but using the Flex, which is very accurate. So we open up the main loop and we use our Flex. Now it remembers my previous detection, but if you don't have lines in the right place, just go to Audio File and Detect Transients again. Logic will warn you that you're going to mess up your previous transients. Okay, and it redetects. Then knock out all the hats and any extra little blips that are incorrect. Okay, now we've got kick, snare, kick, kick, snare again. But now what we can do is we can zoom in. And with the Flex, you can be incredibly accurate with the position of these Flex markers. So I can actually move this transient marker to there and be very, very accurate with the positioning of the vertical line, this transient marker, which will create the grid line for the first kick when we create a groove template. One thing, make sure this is highlighted, and up here it says off in the quantize. Okay, so that's the first peak, and then you drag the little button down here, to drag the waveform in the zoomed in state, and as you do, this white box moves you from bump to bump. So go along looking for each kick and snare. There's the next snare, there's the snare, and again I can be very accurate and drag this Flex transient marker to the exact start of the audio waveform for the, in this case, the snare. And you can be sample accurate if you want, because of course, you can zoom right in and get sample accuracy if you want. Okay, so that one's good enough. Okay, that's a hat. Move to the next pair of kicks. That's incredibly accurate. But you see, you know, the accuracy we can get with these flex markers. If when you move them, they're not moving smoothly and they're jumping, make sure edit, snap edits to 0 crossings is de-ticked, remember. Okay, so go to the next kick. There it is, that's accurate. There we are, the next kick, and again, if I want to, I could bring this in just a fraction like that. I've got the ability to be that accurate. If I wanted to, I could zoom in even further, look, and be even more accurate. You've got incredible accuracy, down to sample accuracy with these flex transient markers. So we go along and we check, make sure every detection line, whoops, is really, really accurate. Okay, let's have a look at this one. Yeah, that's good. Next one is the last snare. Perfect, and that's the hi-hat slice at the end, which we're not detecting. So we've gone through and checked our flex transient markers, and we know now they're absolutely perfect. And if you want to go that far, they can be sample resolution perfect to the start of the little peaks for the kicks and snares. Now kick, snare, kick, 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 snare, and now we just make a groove template of it. And that groove template, that invisible quantized grid, will take its vertical lines from these flex transient markers, which have been made so accurate in terms of their positioning for the beginning of these drum hits, for the kicks and snares. If you want, you can make them sample accurate. And we create this groove template, this invisible quantized grid. It will be called hip hop main, so create it. Okay, that's that one done. Now the same for the hi-hats only loop, you know, where we made it the hi-hat energy, this one. Okay, same thing, flex on. You can do a redetection if you want. Done. Okay, knock out the bad lines with the eraser. That's incorrect. That one is correct though. That's the yeah. That's incorrect. That's incorrect. So we've got a line for each hi-hat, and again we have the advantage with these flex transient markers of being able to zoom in and be incredibly accurate in terms of lining up our flex transient markers to get absolutely perfect detections for our hi-hats like this, you see. So we know they're incredibly accurate. Okay, next one. So we go along and we get a flex transient marker positioned absolutely correctly, and all the way down to zooming to sample resolution if you want for each hi-hat hit. Okay, so these are now incredibly accurate. And finally the hi-hat slice at the end, which may be there or may be there. I think I'm going to actually go for there. You can always correct it afterwards in your MIDI pattern. Okay, so that is our hi-hat, our hi-hats analysed, and we've gone through, zoomed in and checked that these lines are absolutely bloody perfect for the positioning of each of these hi-hat hits. And now again we make a groove template based on the position of these absolutely accurate grey transient markers. Make groove template, and we've got a new groove template called hip hop hats. Okay, that's it. All we do is move that out of the way, bring our main loop back, make sure the EQ's off for that audio channel for the loop. I can get rid of this bottom audio track now. Okay, let's have a look at our MIDI groove template. Okay, now we just highlight the kicks and snares and apply the groove template we just made based on the flex incredibly accurate marker positions to finely quantize the bottom end stuff, and that will make the position of these notes absolutely accurate to the kicks and snares, because we use the flex, which we can zoom in on and get the grid line positions for our groove template absolutely accurate, sample accurate if required. So highlight those drums and apply the groove template of the bottom end taken from flex. Hang on a minute, let's just do that again so we can watch if they move. Here we go, ready? Hip hop main we're going to apply to it, and that's the groove template, and let's see if they move. If they do, it'll be very subtle. Oh yeah, this one moved back a bit and this one moved forward a fraction, so it has applied an extra amount of quantize just to really make those note positions absolutely accurate to the kicks and snares in the audio loop. And now finally we apply the groove template to the hats taken from the hat audio loop, but again using the flex, which is incredibly accurate, and you'll see this grace note move for sure. Right, here we go, quantize those to hip hop hats groove template. Oh, sure enough, that one moved, this one moved, and that one moved. So now these are positioned, the hats, absolutely accurately to the position of the hats in the loop, and we were able to use the transient markers to go in and get up to sample accurate detection line positions if required. Now these notes, with this extra tip I've just shown you, that adding that extra quantize taken from the flex, these notes now in our MIDI groove template will be absolutely position correct for our real drum loop. Let's hear them now. I'll bring the real loop in and out. Oh yeah, that is spot on. Okay, as a little final touch, I've made a little ESX drum kit using the drum sounds from this loop. I just isolated each drum sound, saved it as a sample, and made a little kit from it, which I've put into Logic's factory menu position on the hard disk. So it'll be here. Look, can kit. Now we can hear the MIDI pattern playing the same drum sounds. It won't sound exactly right, but because they're just samples. But anyway, here we go. Very low in volume though. Okay, the hi-hat's on the wrong note now, the slice. There we are. Now I can lower that little grace height note, because I did raise it up from purple velocity earlier. It's more like that, a bit lower. Okay, and if you wanted to, the height slice is longer, and if your sampler isn't doing, you know, one shot triggering, you can make that longer if you want. And let's bring in the real one. Let's put that up even more. Let's bring in the real one and hear the two together. Now you hear that incredibly tight flanging sound when I bring the real loop in against the sample played from the MIDI groove template. That tells you that these two are absolutely spot on, because you only get that really tight flanging when the position of the two is as close can be. So there you go, that's how you do it. One MIDI groove template with the notes positioned, if you like, sample accurate to the position of the hits. That's how you do it. And then you can make it play any drum sounds you want. So I thought the Hip Hop Heavy kit was the best of the lot. Of those ultra beats, I mean, but it's got a different hi-hat open slice position, so we need to change this. There we go. And let's hear that with our bass, but I'm going to apply the groove template hip hop main to those notes. There we go. And this is the real loop. That's how you do it. That's how you make an absolutely accurate MIDI drum pattern from an audio loop, including my extra tip of doing the extra quantizers at the end taken from flex detection to get the note positions absolutely accurate to the pattern, even sample accurate if required. And there you go, that's how you do it. And the fact that you can do that business of adding those final quantizers at the end taken from flex to get incredible accuracy with the position of your notes, the tip I showed you, the accuracy now of the position of these notes, relative to their positions as hits in this drum loop, is way more accurate by doing the final flex-based quantize on the MIDI notes than if you simply went with the detections that you got when you made the analysis and created your MIDI groove template. That's my extra tip. Okay, I thought I'd add this little extra bit in at the end. You don't have to watch this. I mean, I've taught you how to do the techniques, but you might find this interesting. Obviously now that I've showed you all this stuff how to make a MIDI groove template, a MIDI pattern from a drum loop. You can make MIDI patterns accurately of any drum loop you want, including those from your favourite producers or sample CDs or whatever. I thought you might find it interesting to see me doing that on an MPC loop. Okay, this is an MPC loop that I got off the web. I don't know where from, but it's an example somebody uploaded of the timing of an MPC, including a swing on the kick drums, right? And the swing on the kick drums are these brought forward kicks that are kind of going oh da oh da oh oh da oh, like that, right? I'll play it. Oh oh, those are the swing kicks over a quite straight MPC pattern. So if you want to watch this, I'm going to show you now to make a MIDI groove template up to sample accurate if required to capture an MPC timing from a loop. So here we go. I won't explain every last detail of what I'm doing. I'll do it quickly, but you might get something out of it. So there's the MPC loop, which I've previously looped and trimmed and looped and trimmed, so it goes around in a perfect, well, as to my ears, it loops really nicely. Okay, so once you got that, you open it in your audio editor and you go to Functions, Adjust Tempo by Selection and Locators, and we're going to now adjust the tempo of the song to fit the loop. Now it's a 2-bar loop, so my locators have to be exactly covering 2 bars. If it was a 1-bar loop, my left-right locators would cover exactly 1 bar. Your locators must match the length of your loop in bars, basically. So we adjust the tempo for the song by the selection, that's the highlighted loop, and the locators. Here we go. And do it globally. And now it's adjusted the tempo of our song, and now we can play that loop and it will match, you know, the song will cycle around it just nicely. Right, double click, let's do our first analysis and create our first MIDI groove template of this loop. Show Factory Audio to MIDI groove template. Okay, this is the previous preset that I used and then tweaked, and it works quite well. So there we go, we've got a vertical line in the results row for every peak. That's all we're looking for. Doesn't matter if they're super accurate. Done, fine. Click Use. That's it. And our resulting MIDI groove template, MIDI pattern, is lying underneath the loop on the track. Alright, now let's unmute it. Come on. Push it up to an instrument track with a drum instrument on it. Bring the loop back underneath, and now we need to identify the kicks and the snares. Okay, here we go, double click, let's have a look, check up and down, see no notes have gone astray on any other pitch. No, they haven't. Bring it all down to a percussive sound. There we go. Okay, let's sort out the kicks and snares. Kick, kick, kicks, kick. That's all the kicks, I think. Yeah, so kicks down on C1. Here we go. Okay, snares next. Well, they're going to be the orange ones, aren't they? So I'll know they're the orange ones. Okay, so hold down Shift, highlight and select rather the snares. Get them down on D1. Oh, I've got the others highlighted as well. Bring them down to D1. Okay, there's our kicks and snares. We know these are our hats, but we know there are hats missing on any beat where there was a louder drum, so get rid of these hats. Okay, let's hear that. Kicks and snares with the against the actual audio loop. I'll bring the audio loop up and down. Let's raise this up. Come on. Thank you. Okay, that's our kicks and snares, and now we need to get our top end content in, so apply the EQ. Let's put the shelving right up to 5K. Let's have a listen to that. No, I don't want to hear the MIDI pattern at the same time though, the groove template. Let's mute that. Let's put the volume up on this loop. Now, we've got these claps on some of the hi-hat beats. That one, and that one, and that one, and that one. Just the top end sort of the hats is coming through, so I'm going to actually push the shelving up above 5K even to try and get rid of all vestiges, all traces of the hi-hat. Very, very top end, the clap, very, very top end, gravelly sort of hissing noise that you get at the top of a clap. Yeah, a bit more. Maybe too much. Well, there we go, and put the volume up a bit louder so we get a decent level here. That's a bit high, isn't it? Still a bit high. Okay, bounce in place. Okay, done and dusted. There's the new loop, which is hi-hats only. Look at the way that it's skewed off stereo. Actually, it's weird, isn't it? Okay, that's the original loop. Let's get that out of the way. Bring the hi-hats up. Now let's analyse those. Get rid of this EQ and take the EQ off the track, because we've got the bounced in place hi-hats only version now. Here it is. Reanalyze. I'm just looking for one little hit for every hi-hat. Ooh, there's a little extra one there, look. Try increasing the granulation. Come on. No, let's try it. Changing something else, come on. No. Oh. We've still got that little extra just there. Let's try the attack range. Ah, there we go. Okay, one little tiny peak for each hi-hat. That'll do. Track is highlighted, click use. That's that done. And behind this loop, let me just zoom out. Horizontally behind this loop is the new MIDI groove template of just the hi-hats. Let's unmute it. Let's have, come on. Come on. Let's have a look. Hi-hats. There they are. Now, really, they should all be like these little blue ones here, but these are the ones that have the extra tiny bit of clap energy. So, do you know what? If you zoom in and look at them, yeah, look at them. We can just shorten them. They're the same velocity as the others. That's all we want. We just shorten them to the same length. I'm being fussy now. Don't have to do this, but let's just shorten those longer hi-hats that were on the, you know, those were on where the claps were, so they had a little bit of extra energy in them. Like that. There's our hats, but the start positions are all as they should be, taken from the analysis. Okay, so there's all our hi-hats in our second MIDI groove template, taken from the hi-hats only audio bounced in place loop, and now we'll merge it with the kicks and snares analysis from the first one. Let's glue them together. Gosh, there we go, and there's our completed template. Now we can unmute the original loop, bring that back in. Let's have a listen to them together. Oh yeah, get them on the right note. It's muted, that's why I'm not hearing anything. Closed hi-hat. There we go, let me just undo that and do that again. There we go, now the closed hi-hats are there. Let's hear it all together with the loop, and I'll bring the loop up and down. Okay, hi-hats are a bit low, aren't they, on our on our Ultra Beat kit. Where's my eye at? Oh, there it is there. If you wanted to, quite low velocity these, you could highlight the lot and raise their velocity as a group. They'll keep their relative velocities, but they all should be identical because obviously the guy did the loop with the MPC hi-hat just straight 16ths, 8ths, sorry, at the same velocity every hit. But let's raise them up a bit. Right, there we go. In fact, maybe a bit down. Let's hear it with the loop. There you go, lovely jubbly. Now, you might think that's good enough. You might. But, you know, the extra little bit at the end where we do the flex. So let's put the flex on. Command F for flex. Put it on rhythmic. Logic does an analysis. Let's open it up. But let's knock out these extras. Just get the flex analysis going there. Oh, hey. They're both duds. Don't know what that is then. Right, I just want the kicks and snares. So get rid of all the hats. Like that. Okay, we've got just the kicks and snares now with a line. And you know what we can do now? Yeah, of course, we can zoom right in and really check the accuracy of these positions. You know, move them by tiny amounts if required. The very first one, by the way, if you look, it's got a yellow line, which means the detection line, the flex detection line, is as far forward as it can go. I'm going to leave that one exactly on the first beat of the bar. Let's just zoom out. So I'm going to go along here. Now you, if you wanted to be super accurate and make sure these hits are absolutely sample accurate, you could zoom in on every single kick and snare detection line and make sure they're absolutely spot on. But I'm going to not go too mad with it. Just check quickly. Yeah, that'll do. Yeah, that'll do. Let's go along to the next one. That one. That was the next one. Let's have a look. Yep. Next one. Yeah, you know, for example, I'm only moving it by a fractional amount. Just one, you know, maybe a sample or two, but or 3 or 4, I don't know. But the point is, it's just making it as accurate as possible to the MPC sample loop. So let's have a look at the next one. Yeah, that's good. Next one. Yes. Let's have a look at that. Yeah, again, I could, if I wanted to, move that just back a fraction. I'm being very, very finicky. But the point is, you can be that finicky if you want to try to absolutely capture that timing of the MPC, and that's that. Okay, now we've got all the kicks and snares, and as I said, you can go down and be super fussy if you want with each flex line and zoom right in to get the lines exactly spot on. Okay, this is called MPC loop, so we're going to make a groove template from that now. Okay, so loop highlighted, flex detection done, kicks and snare lines only, make a groove template, and it'll be called MPC loop. Okay, there's our MPC loop, invisible quantized grid taken from these flex transient vertical lines, which we have zoomed in first to look at to make sure they're absolutely bloody spot on. Right, that's the groove template, invisible quantized grid done for the kicks and snares, which we know is super accurate. Now for the hi-hats. Okay, get those there. I'm going to reanalyze them, redetect the transients. Let's knock out the duffs with the rubber. Come on, you get lost. There we go. And again, if you want to, you can go along and you can be super accurate to check each of these little hi-hats is detected absolutely perfectly like that, you know. But obviously that's going to take too much time for this tutorial. But the point is, you could. Yeah, like that one, for example, you can move it to there. Now, let me just show you something. That's zoomed out. Let's have a look at it, the flex lines and the MIDI to groove, audio to MIDI groove template detection lines as well. Let's turn flex off. Yeah, actually they are quite accurate in this case. They're quite similar, aren't they? So we're not going to see a huge difference, but the point is we are going to make a flex based groove template from these lines, and it does give us the opportunity to make a hi-hat groove template, an invisible quantized grid, based on the exact timing of these hi-hats, which if we want to we can zoom in on and make sure that each one is ultra accurate. Okay, so I'll just show you a couple just to show you. There you go. You know, again, if you wanted to, you can move that one, etc. Okay, so whatever. But the point is, you can zoom right in and get these flex transient markers for each hi-hat hit absolutely spot on to sample accuracy if required. So let's make a groove template, an invisible quantized grid from these flex detections of the hi-hats. But first, I'm going to retitle that as MPC loop hats. There we go. Alright, make the groove template. Okay, we've got a groove template for the hats and for the loop. Kicks and snares. Right, bring the original loop back underneath. Make sure the EQ's off. Yes, it is. And now we just apply those groove templates. Now you might not see anything move. You might not. Let's apply the flex-based groove template, you know, that we did from the flex analysis of this loop, which is we've zoomed in and made those grid lines in our invisible quantized grid taken from the flex. You know, absolutely accurate. Let's see if it makes any of these move. It might not. Let me just do down there and do it so you can actually see. Here we go. Ready? MPC loop. Now watch those notes if any move. They might not. Oh no, they didn't, did they really? Let's put them back to the off position. And it could be because we just zoomed normal zoom. I mean, the amount we've trimmed these flex lines when we created our grid, our groove template, which we're now trying to apply to these notes, was so finicky and accurate. It might be that these are only moving a fraction and we can't even see it, but let me just look at that one, for example, zoomed right in. Alright, these two. Let's see if any of those move. Let's do it again. Here we go. Well, you know what? At least we know they are dead accurate. Even if you don't see any move, they might have moved one tick and you didn't quite see it. But the point is, we know these are accurate to that loop now for the kicks and snares. And now the same for the hats. Apply the MPC loop hats. Again, you won't see anything move probably, but we know they're super accurate. And that's it, done. Super accurate MIDI groove template of that MPC loop, capturing that MPC timing of these offbeat kicks and whatever else MPC loop happens to be doing. But you could apply the same techniques to your favourite producers' loops. And that's it. There you go. That's how you get the timing of an MPC loop. So I hope that's been useful. You know, this little extra technique I've shown at the end of always making these flex-based groove template, you know, quantized grids, but using the flex detection where you can zoom in and, you know, really you can manually move these flex transient markers to be super accurate. You know, that's the little extra technique. Whoops. But make sure when flex is on, your loop hasn't got any quantize, otherwise it'll start moving the flex around. And there you go, look, you just switch up there. But yeah, that little extra of adding the flex detected groove templates, the grids at the end, just to make sure everything's absolutely spot on. It makes sure that you do get the accuracy. And there you go, that's how you do it with an MPC loop. And you can use these techniques to make MIDI groove templates, MIDI patterns of your favourite drum loops from any producer you like and from sample CDs and anywhere else. That's the end of the groove template part of this chapter. Hope it's been useful. Let's move on.